Kim, great to be here with you today.
Same.
Let's talk a little bit about that place where we both spend a lot of our time, Washington, D.C., aka the swamp. And I'm just curious as to what you all are seeing with the new administration, and in particular some of the initiatives that seem to be going on. Aiken has always had one of the leading policy practices in the country, if not globally, and I'm just curious as to how 2017 has been going so far in Washington.
Yeah, so I guess I start with, as you know, we live in interesting times, so it has been quite a transition for, I think, the whole country to absorb. In the legal sector, I think it's been creating opportunities, some expected and some of which I think as President Trump's initiatives have started to become clearer are creating a whole variety of paths for us and I assume for you. So when you walk into our office on the 10th floor, there are these two statues of a donkey and an elephant. And I guess I've been really glad that that's how we have built the firm in the last 2 decades, to accommodate bipartisanship, accommodate different views on a whole range of topics, and I think that served us well. So some of the obvious places where we have seen a direct impact from the new administration is clients very focused on trade issues, on tax. Obviously, the healthcare issues were kind of the dominant force in the beginning of the administration, and we felt like we were well positioned to address those needs. In general, I think what we both have found in running large law firms is the change is actually something that is an opportunity accelerator at law firms, and we certainly are facing quite a bit of change. And Hogan?
Yeah, very similar. I have lots of activity in the tax policy area, a lot of interest there, a lot of activity in trade, as you mentioned, and kind of across the board, even as there is talk about rolling back regulations and shutting things down, it's opened up a lot of new questions for clients, and we're definitely feeling a level of activity that we did not see last year. It's not unusual in an election year to have some softening of activity in D.C., and it's definitely interesting. Obviously the travel ban got everybody's attention. Was Aiken involved in that in some fashion?
We were indeed. So the weekend that unfolded, our pro bono partner organized efforts in Dulles and in JFK, and we had a pretty overwhelming response to our associates and partners interested in meeting the needs and challenges.
Right.
We have a long standing commitment to this, including in the prior administration with representing women and children who are in detention centers. So this was kind of part of our fabric already, but this I think did rally people to think about what we can do in the legal sector, and I think it was a strong show of support throughout the large law firm community that I thought was an impressive show.
Those first few weeks were a little bit unusual, I will say that, and I was very impressed at just the spontaneous reaction to the developments that weekend, and then we had the opportunity to represent the state of Hawaii and its ongoing challenges to the Travel Ban 1 and Travel Ban 2, and that has definitely attracted a lot of interest within the firm and outside the firm. One of the things that's been interesting to me, and I don't think this is unique to us, but particularly among some of the younger lawyers, there's more of a sense, what's the firm's position on these things? And we have found ourselves having to navigate that whole set of issues. We don't have a foreign policy. We don't. What we do is we represent clients, and it's been an interesting challenge at times to walk that line carefully and be clear that we stand for the rule of law, we stand for upholding people's rights, and at the same time, we're not out there to take a political position on issues, even though people are interested in those questions.
Right, and we have absolutely the same stake in this, which is we're a law firm. There are unique skills that we can bring to bear to make sure that there is representation for those who are not represented. The rule of law is sacrosanct. But it is a challenge because we have a firm with a wide range of views on issues, and I think we've done a good job of finding kind of the common core values of what the legal community can do at challenging times like this. And I think it's actually been well received that the firm has been as committed but also thoughtful in what it is that we choose to undertake in this respect.
Right. You can't unring the bell, so you do have to be focused on what you're actually putting out there, and in the world of social media, that can sometimes be challenging.
No question about it. But you are hearing from, our associates are very interested in knowing what the firm's views are and where they can add value. I have the unique added perspective of having a daughter who's a fifth-year associate at another large law firm. And so hearing her perspective and her firm's perspective on what it is that we can do to ensure some of the values that we most care about has been a good added perspective.
Right.
Should we turn to moving across to a whole other range of interesting times that we're living in? So, Brexit. I remember the day of the vote, and I remember a variety of assurances that I received from my partners that just no way, this is all not to worry, Kim. This is all just going to stay the way it is, and woke up to some startling news. Should have taken some bets, I guess, but here we are with a new day dawning and with more interesting news today. So you have a very significant presence in London. What is Brexit meaning to you so far, and where do you see it going forward?
Well, it's something we've spent a lot of time thinking about. It obviously caught us by surprise, as it did everybody. I was actually in Perth when the election happened, and I went to bed with everybody saying that Remain had won, and woke up to a new world. And obviously, the first efforts in 2016 were around trying to understand what this could mean, and lots of speculation and wheel spinning. But what we've seen now are clients are beginning to now put into motion plans. They don't necessarily have the luxury of waiting to see exactly how the exit occurs, and we have a very active financial institutions practice in London, and have seen those clients begin to actively explore what the options are. It's I think it's still in your crystal ball, impossible to say how this is going to work out over the long run. All the economists seem to think it's going to be a bad thing for the United Kingdom, and it's hard to argue with that. I will say that our lawyers on the continent see this as a great opportunity, and if you are in Frankfurt or Paris or Amsterdam, there's a lot of talk about what this will mean in a positive way in terms of those practices. I think that the United Kingdom and London will continue to be significant players in Europe, even if it's not within the context of being an EU member, and that the change is going to come pretty slowly. We're glad that we're there. We're glad that we're there in a big way, but it is, I think that we've always understood that the regulatory risks for businesses were something that needed to be managed. The political risks that have emerged in the last year have, I think, knocked people back and made us all understand that there's a whole third leg to the stool of politics that can have a big impact on our businesses, not just the economy, not just government regulation.
Right, no question about it. So we too, I think everyone invested in trying to be prepared for this, but it still was unexpected, no question about it. We fielded a huge number of inquiries, many involving just kind of the nuts and bolts at first, but now I think, like you, we're seeing kind of more long-term planning and interest in, okay, this is a reality, and what does it actually mean for us and for our business? Our client base in London is probably less susceptible to this wreaking havoc on them, but it doesn't mean that the issues aren't very real. We've engaged in a higher level of expertise in London on trade, for example, because we think that there's going to be a whole bunch of issues and renegotiations where it will matter and our clients will have interests and views on what direction some of these initiatives take. What happens in terms of London as a legal center, I still think that it is going to play a very, very significant role for our tenure running law firms and beyond. So I think the initial wave of kind of shock has settled into something that is more about how do we manage this most effectively for our business, recognizing some things are going to change, but the change is going to be gradual and I think less abrupt than it felt in those kind of last days of June or beginning of July.
I think that all seems right. And my only caveat is if Le Pen is elected in France, then we need to reconvene and figure out
we'll come back.
What's going to happen next. Let's shift in a slightly different direction. We all talk and focus on how important it is to have diversity in our law firms, in our teams. And I'm curious, Kim, as certainly one of the most preeminent women legal leaders in the United States and globally, how do you see this? Where do you think you are today? Where do you think the profession is? What's going to happen next over the critical 5-year period we have coming up?
I have all perfect answers to this, Steve.
Good, that's why I asked you.
So, this is a huge challenge and a very compelling issue for us to focus on. And I guess I start with, I feel, humbled and grateful that I am in this role. I also feel like I ought to make sure that I don't squander the opportunity. So being in a leadership role and having a voice in these issues, I made a high priority from the start of my tenure as chair. I was fortunate that my predecessor shared this commitment. So this has been kind of in our fabric that this is a meaningful, very significant issue for the legal profession. It's significant in every way. It's significant in terms of meeting the needs of people who require legal services. It's significant in terms of who our clients are and what it says about us and how we have the best perspectives on the work that we offer and the viewpoints that we bring. And that's all before you get to this is the right thing. We are a diverse world, and being able to navigate those cultural differences is extremely important. I don't think that either of our firms have a lot of people who doubt that. I think that has become ingrained, but getting from here to how do we get this to a different place, I think we're both firms that have a big commitment to this, and yet the statistics on how many women are partners in law firms.
You start with 50%,
right,
50-50, and by the time you get to the partnership cutoff, it's 25-30% if you're lucky.
If you're doing this really well.
Yes.
And on diverse lawyers, similar, making sure that people remain at the law firm and are able to get the kinds of opportunities that allow you to shine. This requires a huge amount of commitment on the part of the firm. And what we're doing, I think, is good, but there is more to be done. And this has been just an important theme to me. I mean, if I were to tell you my personal belief in where the secret sauce in this is, I think it's all around assignments. I think it's what opportunities people are getting, who they're getting to work with, making sure that this is not simply kind of I really like this person, so I'm going to keep working with them, as opposed to, are we really looking at who's getting what assignments, who are they working with, what stretch opportunities are they getting, what are the ways in which they're able to distinguish themselves. And that can't be incidental. That really has to be focused on. I've said to my practice group leaders on several occasions now, if I could take all of the money from every one of the kind of nice things that we do to create a sense of community, those are all really important. But if I could take all of you and spend 3 days on understanding every step of what it is to be an associate at a law firm and how it is that you succeed, I would take the time and make sure that everybody has great intentions. I really believe that people are trying to get this right, but it's not turning out in the successful way that it needs to, and really finding those moments in time that define whether somebody stays at the law firm, whether they progress successfully, whether they get a great opportunity, whether a client falls in love with them. That has to be a more intentional aspect to being in a large law firm.
Yeah, I'd absolutely engagement with the associate and really understanding what's going on in their life at the firm and outside the firm is the challenge, and it's very hard sometimes to get those have real conversations around those things. There are a lot of unmentionables that people don't want to, maybe they're not happy at a law firm, maybe they're thinking about something else, and too often we discover it's on the way out the door that somebody says, if only I could have done X or Y. Well, I think it's on the firm to try to find a way to engage on those, at a much earlier time when you can act on it. But totally agree that it is the work assignment process that's at the heart of this. We've been working on that. We've also, I think, one of the things I've tried to do is just try to make sure we have a lot of balance in the room where decisions get made. So we have roughly a 13-person team that runs the firm day to day, and 5 of those people are women. And they're also geographically diverse, so that brings its own little aspect to it. But having been in the room for a long time now, it is fascinating to me to reflect back just how different the conversations are. It just is a different, different questions get asked. They get pursued in a different way, and I tend to think the decision making is better just by having broad, diverse viewpoints.
I totally agree. I'll tell you one funny moment in our comp meetings this year. There was some moment where I would say that I made a point, and about 15 seconds later, someone else around the table said the exact same thing. And I paused and said, can I just try and make sure that everybody is educated on this? So I just said this, and then someone else said the exact same thing. They just said it in a louder, deeper voice. And one of my partners, to his credit, said, "Oh, this is what my daughter calls mansplaining." and that resonated with the room.
Yeah.
So I agree that there's a lot about who's in the room, and the direction that the conversation takes is definitely different. And we've done the same thing. I mean, we have created rotation on all of our committees and term limits so that there is new people coming into leadership positions on the firm. And I think just empirically we are making better decisions with a wider range of viewpoints, and it feels more comfortable and more inclusive as a law firm. So at every level, I think you get better results, and it also sends, I think, an important message on these issues as to how much the firm values it. Because if you're talking a lot about it, but you're not showing it in what you do and who's running your practices and whose viewpoints are getting considered, people get that. It's a smart population. They know that you're not really walking the walk.
Yeah, I think that's where you get to kind of what's the culture you talk about,
right.
What's the culture you live.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely.